What's going on, everyone? I'm your host for the week, as Ryan is out of town. Today, I'll be joined by Kaylie Shapiro and Matthew DeSantis, both of Naira Bets. How you guys doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really good. How you doing, Matthew?
Doing well, doing just as well as you.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to apologize. I'm working through all the technical stuff, so there may be a hiccup here and there. But because I am in charge today, I can talk about whatever I want. And we are going to start off today's show talking about your Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles, baby. Bring it on for the Birds. That was a beautiful win. I know Matthew's a big fan of them too.
Absolutely. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go Birds. I mean, I was saying that to everybody I was seeing the week leading up. Anybody in New York that had Eagles gear, definitely just got a Go Birds shout out and a little bit of a fist bump if I was close by. But yeah, it was unreal. I mean, I'm 44 years old. The first 37 years of my life, it was just losing and losing in the most like painful ways in a lot of instances, and having teams that looked like they had a lot of potential and then just to fall short, going all the way back to the Buddy Ryan days of the 1980s and 90s. And then obviously the Andy Reid era. And so that first Super Bowl over the Patriots was amazing. And, I think for them just to blow out Kansas City the way they did was just like, it was kind of anticlimactic. Like as an Eagles fan, I'm sitting around, I'm like, I'm waiting for something to go wrong. And this team just keeps scoring points. And I'm like, all right, I guess I just don't have to worry about anything by like the third quarter. So it was kind of a different experience as an Eagles fan, but one that I know millions of us really appreciated.
Yeah, it was great. I had a good feeling that, if we were going to win, we were kind of going to win comfortably because it felt like we were the better team, but they had the Mahomes factor. I didn't think we were going to win like that, though. It was 34-0 and the Chiefs hadn't crossed midfield yet. That's just unbelievable. It's insane. It was thorough domination. I was watching the post-game stuff. My brother got mad at me. Let's change it. I'm like, no, we might never get back here again. I might live another 100 years and we'll never be here again. So I'm going to enjoy every second of it. I'm still riding that high every time the videos come on social media.
No, it was hysterical. Like I was like, after the game was over, I was like, I have not gotten enough post-game analysis. I'm now going to switch to NBC Philadelphia on YouTube for their post-game. And then like when that's over, I'm like, I'm going to switch to the PHLY like podcast as well. Yeah. So I'm just like going to all these like local Philly outlets to just be like, give me all the Philly coverage I can get right now.
Trying to consume as much as I can. Gotta ride the wave. It was awesome.
Exactly.
All right, let's jump into this weekend's sequence on Saturday. I think there's a little bit of weather in the forecast, but nothing too crazy is what Kaylie told me. So we're going to go with that. We're starting
a bit of rain.
A little bit of rain, yeah. Nothing too crazy. Race 5, I thought this was probably the most wide open race of the sequence. I think the favorite is like 7-2, I want to say. So this might be the best betting race in here. I'm 378. Kaylie's 425. Matthew 423. So we'll start off with number 4. That is Debate 7-2. Kaylie, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I saw this as the horse to beat here. 7-2 on the morning line is your morning line favorite. Pretty good price, so I felt comfortable putting him on top. He's run races that are good enough to win here. Seems like this horse also improved in his start for Wayne Potts as well. So now he gets Manny Franco aboard, which was the main thing that stuck out to me. Hopefully, he gets a bit of a better ride here. He was super wide. In his last race, I think like 7 wide into the upper stretch. So maybe, the jockey upgrade, different dynamics could get this horse into the winner's circle.
I like it. What'd you see here, Matthew?
Yeah, many of the same things Kaylie pointed out. And Wayne Potts obviously moving this horse forward a little bit and also dropping in class from claiming 15 down to claiming 10. And as Kaylie pointed out, I think astutely so, you pick up Manny Franco and good things are probably going to happen here. So I thought that jockey upgrade was a pretty significant one. And the horse does like to come from well off the pace, which I think is one of the major concerns that you have with a horse, any horse, quite frankly, at Aqueduct this time of year. Sometimes the track tends to be speed favoring, particularly when weather starts to get involved. So maybe that's something to take into consideration the first few races of the day. If you see rain starting early, just pay attention to how the track is playing. But I think, like you said, I agree with your analysis, the most wide open of the 5 races, I think. And so from a pick standpoint, definitely going to be spreading to a few different horses, but Debate ended up being my top selection.
Yeah, I like it. And sometimes when, I'm looking at this field, I don't see a whole lot of speed in here. So sometimes when you get this situation like that, these deep closers kind of get invited into the race. So maybe he's only 3 or 4 lengths back instead of 10 or 11 like he usually is. That might be a benefit for him. But I look to the horse to the inside, coming out of the same race. That's Centavo. He ran the same race, he was a lot closer that day, but just kind of ran in place, didn't do too much running. But I want to be a little forgiving of that effort. That was his first start in 7 months, and he has every reason to move forward off of that. Has some back numbers to run to that would make him pretty tough in here. And as I just mentioned, there's serious lack of speed. He's another one that's probably going to be forward in a race that doesn't have much of it. So if he can get comfortable towards the front end, I don't see why he can't take a step forward in a second start off the bench. And then
he definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's my third selection, year first, but I thought, in particular, Naipaul Chatterpaul, the trainer, is one who runs his horses back very regularly. So I think, that first race off the bench, you just draw a line through it. A second race coming back on short rest is usually, you see those types of horses move forward. 6-1, I feels like a very fair price. So definitely a horse I want to include in my tickets. And I need to shout out, obviously, our favorite jockey on the Naira circuit, which is the Turkish jockey that's up on this horse. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name because I don't want to mispronounce it and be culturally insensitive. But I will just say he's got like 80,000 followers on Twitter. And whenever he wins a race, the Naira Bets account goes nuts because everybody's liking and retweeting the stretch runs. So certainly for our sake, we hope we see him in the winner's circle.
Yeah, I hope so too. That'd be good. 6-1 is a very fair price, I would think.
Yeah.
And then you guys both have number 2. That is Allure of Money, 9-2. What did you guys like here?
This horse is, making another drop in class after a bit of a subpar effort in his last start. He did, bump with someone at the start, ended up dropping back too far, and he didn't really have the easiest of trips there. This horse's last win, pretty sure it came over a mile. So that was something else that stuck out to me. Since getting claimed, he's, progressed with each start besides the last one. You can make some excuses for that. And also he's by Central Banker. And if we do have some moisture in the track on Saturday, Central Bankers run very well over that. So that was also something else I considered with this horse.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kaylie. I didn't even see the Central Banker point, but as soon as you were like, he's sired by Central Banker, I was like, I know exactly where she's going, and she's absolutely right about this. And yeah, no, they always do well in the slop. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah, this one, listen, it's coming out of State Bred Company, but it's been running against really nice competition. I mean, some of those claiming races that we have that are New York, restricted, have good competition. I mean, you look at Colloquy, a couple of starts back, Coinage. Those are nice horses. Rodney, in particular, a stakes winner. Obviously that wasn't a great effort that day, but just shows you where that horse was in terms of their estimation of them. And, even the horse Sundays with Sandy, who won last time out, is a nice horse. The second place horse comes back to win. So as Kaylie said, it was a tough trip last time out. You 9-2, get a little bit more of a price here. And I think this one has a few races to run back to in order to get in the winner's circle.
All right, moving on to number 7. That's my second pick. That's Re-Rally towards the outside. When we had Maggie on a couple weeks ago, I believe we were talking about some Parks horses on that December 31st day. Mm-hmm. And that was a day that was very inside speed bias. We saw some really, really spread out races. I mean, you see this horse, he was 4th beaten 30 lengths. That is, you don't see that too often in a 10-horse field. So I think that was a day where you can kind of just toss it. And if you do, and again, the horse was outside the whole time from post 10, had a wide trip. If you're able to forgive that effort, you go back to his races prior to that. He's very competitive in a spot like this. He's one that's run well over a wet surface. This is probably a bit of a step up from what he's been running against. He's been facing those conditional claimers, but I don't think it's a huge difference. So he's one that I wanted to give a look to, be a little forgiving of that last effort, because if you do, his races make his best effort, gives him a good look. And then Kaylie, your third choice is Wild Banker number 5, a bit of a price.
Yeah, another Central Banker that I wanted to take one at a price here. I know this one looks like he's, kind of regressed compared to his form when he was running up, and it looks like he's kind of regressed a little bit, but I thought this was a play at a big price, and this horse can probably improve off of his last start as well, cutting back in distance here. So, and dropping back down in class to the 10,000 claiming level. Last time we saw him at that level, sorry, my eyesight's poor. But yeah, I just think this horse is a horse that honestly could win at a really big price. So that's why I included him.
Yeah, I like it. It has the cutback ankle as well that I'm always a big fan of in races like this. And then real quick, my third choice is Prince of Joy. Just your typical outside speed horse. Ran pretty well last time. Has a chance to be the best with speed. Good outside draw. Runs well on a wet track. So wanted to give him a chance. He's the only one that's stretching out, and I do like that angle when everyone else is trying to cut back or maybe maintain that same distance. Stretching him out, spread this field out a little bit. Maybe he can get brave on the front end, but that's my third choice. I saw this race 3-7-8. Kaylie has it 4-2-5, and Matthew 4-2-3. So we're going to move on to the sixth race. I believe this is a race that isn't as wide open. We have a pretty heavy favorite, if I remember correctly. That is number. Did it change? No, it did not.
8.
There we go. It's going to load. But there's a Linda Rice horse, I promise you. She's towards the outside. Number 8. Okay, there it is. Accidental bid. Even money for Linda Rice. Looks like we all have him on top. So, Matthew, why don't you kick us off? What did you see here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously, probably what everybody else saw, including morning line maker David Aragona, making the horse even money for Linda. Jose Lezcano, or number 1 jockey up on the mount. This one, interestingly enough, has been riding this horse for Jeremiah Engelhardt, for David Donk, and now rides the horse for Linda. So the jockey's got a lot of familiarity with the horse. Linda's always dangerous in these maiden claiming races off the claim. And then what I really like is, honestly, the cutback is going from a mile to 6.5. It's not so dramatic of a cutback, but it's one that clearly would help this horse that has good early speed, but tends to just fade a little bit late. And I think, you stick at this level, you cut the horse back a little bit, and this horse looks to be kind of heads and shoulders above everybody else in the field.
Yeah, I agree. Kaylie, what'd you see here?
Completely agree. And, the horse that finished third to him in his last start, broke his maiden next time out, improved buyer speed figure significantly. And I just think this horse has good speed in a race with not much in it as well. So I ended up singling this horse, actually.
Yeah, I did too. I was just looking at, his last 5 speed figures are all faster than anything anyone else has ran in their last 3 or 4 starts.
Mm-hmm.
So he just needs to show up, really, and barring some unexpected improvement from the others, he'll be very tough. He'll have every chance to win this race. You guys both have number 1 and 2nd. That is Drive Through. It was Drive Through, right? It wasn't the other horse.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll Drive Through. We'll start with Kaylie this time. What did you like here?
Yeah, this horse has improved a ton after getting blinkers, looks like. And, you can make excuses for his last 2 starts as well with them. 2 back, he came pretty wide around this. He came pretty wide around the turn, and then he ended up getting out finished. That was going 7 furlongs. Last out, he chased a horse that got loose, but I thought that the way that he ran on was pretty good. And this is another central banker as well. So it was something else. I'm not intentionally picking all these central bankers, but I guess that's another positive thing with this one as well. So yeah, I think honestly, if it's not going to be accidental bid, it's probably likely to be this one.
Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, to Kaylie's point, this horse has gotten progressively faster since that first effort on the dirt. And so you definitely like to see that. Rob Atras knows how to get these horses ready at this level up here, obviously winning at a pretty high percentage during this Aqueduct winter meet. And yeah, I mean, also, I don't think it's nothing. I mean, drew the rail last time out, which, the horse got away okay, but I always like to, that's an angle that I'll play pretty regularly in sprints when a horse escapes from the rail and just kind of moves out, even if it's just 1 or 2 spots. It's just so much easier for horses to kind of get out and get in a little bit more comfortable spot. Gives the jockey a lot more options, in this case, Matty Oliver. So I just think that there's a lot going for this horse, and would agree that if you're going to try to beat the even money favorite, this is obviously the one to do it with. It is part of the coupled entry, so whether you get 7-2, we'll just have to wait and see, or whether or not, obviously, the 1-8 even runs. We'll have to see. Sometimes that coupled entry half of them will scratch. So, but yeah, definitely a good horse, and one that if it doesn't break its maiden today, it'll probably break its maiden next time out.
Just to add to your point with the rail thing, it's not like that was a small field. That was a 12-horse field.
Right.
He was breaking the rail from. That's a very difficult thing to overcome, and he ran really well in that spot. So yeah. I can definitely see him making some noise in here. Real quick, my third choice. This is more for a horse underneath, I believe, Short Time, who kind of just is a horse that picks up the pieces at a big price. And if you're looking for some kind of value with a big favorite in here, maybe this is one you can key underneath for 3rd and 4th. He's run well on a wet track before. He's just one of those horses that kind of picks up the pieces. 2nd start at this level, so maybe he has some improvement in him. But again, this is one I'm going to use strictly underneath. I don't think he's a big win candidate.
I will say, to your point about the wet track, this is a horse that, I mean, when you see this horse on a card, you should just assume there will be a wet track because this horse can't catch a dry track. I mean, 9 career starts, 6 wet tracks. I mean, this is nuts. 2/3 of this horse's poor starts are over a wet track. So who knows? Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But I mean, yeah, maybe this horse is just dying for a dry track one of these days too. So that's just kind of nuts. I don't know if I've seen that high of a percentage of wet tracks to total starts as I have with this one.
Maybe they're targeting it. Maybe they know something we don't, and they're picking and choosing their spots.
Predicting the weather. Yeah.
This is also his third start off of a long layoff, so we could see some improvement for him. And then towards the outside, we all have number 9, Katani, in the third spot. So what did you guys like here?
Manny Franco's taking the ride for the first time. This is only the horse's second time sprinting on the dirt. The figures that this horse has ran are pretty on par with, the main players in here, especially if he's able to take another step up. And also this horse, tired going 6 furlongs, but I'm not going to read too much into it because he was chasing a runaway winner. So, I mean, maybe he just kind of stopped running, but yeah. And then this horse has been close going longer as well. So I think with the different setup here and getting Manny aboard for the first time, they can probably change up the tactics a little bit. And this horse also draws to the outside. So, Manny can play the break as well with this one. And I think, that gives this horse a little bit of an advantage as well. And this one was in the same race as Accidental Bid. And that's the one that I mentioned, the horse that Accidental Bid beat, who finished third. This one finished fourth to that horse. That horse broke its maiden in the next start and improved 17 Beyer speed figure points. So I think this horse is likely to take another step up here.
Yeah, he should get a good trip from that outside post, right? He's going to be pressing the favorite probably the whole way. Like you said, he'll be able to see the break, and then we'll just kind of see what he has left in the tank. Manny Franco, all the trust in the world in him. He knows what he's doing. He wins a lot of races. So definitely one I wanted to use at least a little bit. What did you think about this one, Matthew?
Yeah, much the same as you guys. I mean, good speed, but not elite speed. But in this spot, the outside post position is just ideal for Manny to be able to see how everybody breaks, just look to his left and go, okay, this is where I need to slot this horse over. In all likelihood, kind of more of a tracking trip. So, and to be fair, this is only the horse's 4th start on the dirt. So, this is one who might have a little bit more talent on the turf ultimately, but still, that's what we have sometimes over the winter at Aqueduct. Sometimes you'll see some of these horses that are probably best on the grass, but obviously that's all tarped up. So we're just running on the dirt. But every once in a while you see them come through and break through and get a win on this surface. And then, come springtime, those are good horses to remember come springtime, because you'll go, oh, that's right, this horse just needs to get back on the grass. And then you'll see a big effort.
Yeah, I agree. This is a horse I know I've bet him a few times on the grass, so definitely excited to see him later this spring once he gets back to it. That was race number 6. Big favorite in there. I saw it 895. Kaylie had it 819, and Matthew 819 as well. So we're going to move on to race 7, where I believe our favorite is number 6. That is Grammy Girl at 5-2, coming off a couple of nice efforts. Just one first off the bench, and then was just a very close second last time. But I believe we're all trying to beat her in this spot. We're all going to number 8 on the outside. That is Patty Van Twinkle. So we'll start with Matthew in this one. What did you see here?
First of all, Kaylee should know this. It pains me not to pick Horacio de Paz horse first. So I always love picking Horacio's horses. So Grammy Girl was one who I wanted to like, but I can't quite believe her in those last 2 performances. It just seems so anomalous to what she had been before the layoff. So maybe she's a new horse, but I'm going to try to beat her on the outside. With Patty Van Twinkle, Mike Baker, always good moving horses up. And I think that's a really important point. So this horse is coming from claiming 25 to allowance company. Here's the thing. Over the last 5 years in dirt sprints, Maker is winning 26% of the time when moving horses up from claiming to allowance competition. That's a pretty telling statistic that he knows when these horses need to be able to move up and to spot them in effective allowance races like this one. So I just thought this is a horse that seems to be improving for him, and it's not unusual to see horses move forward for Maker. And I just think the 7 furlongs is kind of a perfect distance for this one. good speed, outside post position, and should be able to judge the break, and can win a couple of ways too. That maiden breaking victory was coming from pretty far, not far off the pace, but past a bunch of horses, and then last time out, obviously winning in gate to wire fashion. So like the versatility there, and thought you could get at least a little bit of a price.
Yeah, and I should probably mention that this show is in a bit of a funk when we're all picking the same horse. I think we're over our last 7 or 8. So the last race, we all have the same horse. We all have the same this race. But I think we're going to be okay because I've decided that Ryan is the reason we've been losing. He's not here today. He's the mush, so we're going to be good. This horse has a good chance. So let's blame Ryan when this 8 horse hits. What did you see, Kaylie, about number 8, Patty Van?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, also, this is a race with not too much speed in it, so I just didn't really see it setting up for the morning line favorite whatsoever, and went towards a horse with more speed that draws nicely to the outside, cutting back to 7 furlongs, which is really going to suit her. And like Matthew said, Mike Maker knows how to move horses up, so I felt this was a good opportunity to play against the favorite here.
Yeah, I agree. I actually watched her last race, and she didn't break that great. She kind of was the first furlong or two. She was actually 3rd or 4th, and then made a middle move, split horses, took off to the front, and then just opened up on that field. So I kind of liked what I saw in that race. That was pretty impressive. This is a step up in class, but this isn't significant at this time of year. There's not a huge difference at these class levels, and especially when you're looking at the speed figures. So I like that she's drawn outside. As you mentioned, there's not a lot of speed in here, so she should get a pretty comfortable trip towards the outside and just have every chance when the real running starts.
Mm-hmm.
We all have number 2 somewhere. That is the Big Calhoun. This is probably the main speed, I would imagine, for Rick Dutrow. What did you guys see in this horse?
Yeah, I saw the same thing, probably the speed of the race. And Dutrow has, great stats, over the last 5 years at Aqueduct. First off the claim, 11 for 39, 28%. So not much speed in here. This one has shown a decent amount of speed in her last couple of starts. Seems pretty well-intentioned getting placed here as well. So and then, the 2 back-to-back races that this horse ran at Keeneland really stick out to me because those aren't, regular claiming races. So that's something that stuck out to me. And this horse really ran, I guess the one bad race that horse ran was over the slop. And I know we might get a track with a little bit of moisture on Saturday, but what I'm saying is you can kind of excuse that outlier right there. It was over the slop as well. So yeah, I think she's the speed here, and Manny taking the mount should be able to give her a nice trip.
Yeah, I think that, absolutely everything Kaylie said. Manny up is a good one on this. And listen, it's also, it's Rick Dutrow Jr. season, winter at Aqueduct. I mean, there's certain trainers that, whether it's Rob Atras, whether it's, Rick Dutrow Jr., whether it's Linda Rice. I mean, these are the names you just get a little bit more familiar with over the winter at Aqueduct that start winning at a pretty high clip. Dutrow's had a couple of nice horses. Obviously, he's on the Derby trail with a horse like Captain Cook, who we saw win in the last Derby prep up here in the Withers. So it's, he knows how to run these sorts of barns. First off the claim, a little bit of a freshening and getting this horse ready. So, absolutely kind of going to be the speed. I think the biggest question I had was just in terms of maybe potential conditioning. This horse was tiring kind of at 6 furlongs last time out. So, going extra furlong, that's what kind of prevented me from picking this horse up top. But there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, I agree. And, the Dutrow barn has cooled off a little bit. They're only winning at 20% now instead of 40%. So maybe that's not a concern at all. They're fine. The layoff is a concern. I think you mentioned the distance is a little bit concerning as well. But there's not a lot of speed. I feel like she's going to be kind of controlling this thing on her own tempo. She just has to overcome the wet track. That's probably the biggest concern I have. 0 for 3, it hasn't hit the board, and really all her numbers aren't great either. So, but again, it's the speed of the speed, and that's what wins dirt races year round at any track. It doesn't matter. The speed is always dangerous, so I needed to use her somewhere. Let's go down to number 5. This is my third pick. This is another one where very much an underneath pick. This horse just runs consistently every time. She just doesn't ever win. So just key underneath. She's 2 for 24, 3 seconds, 11 thirds. You look at her record at Aqueduct, 12 for 15 in the money, over wet track, 5 for 7 in the money, all at this level. She always shows up. You can kind of count on her to run a big race. So this is definitely one I want to use in 2nd and 3rd and 4th on all of my verticals. Don't think she's good enough to win, but again, she can definitely make some noise and hit the board. And then
Yeah, you key her in your trifecta, that's for sure.
Right.
I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out Ryan, absolutely. Had to get at least a couple of those in there. And then Splashy is 6-1. You guys both have in third, I believe, second and third. So let's start with Matthew because you have her in second.
Yeah, I thought this one was a little bit interesting for Linda. Obviously, we mentioned Jose Lezcano, her number one jock, is aboard here. And, coming out of, this horse took a long time to break its maiden. Was running on the turf a lot and then finally broke its maiden over the dirt in maiden special weight competition against New York breds. Stepped up against, N1X Allowance Company, state breds. And, Peanut or Pickle's not a bad horse that won that day. And then, now I don't know if it's dropping in class, but it's an interesting class move for Linda to move this horse from kind of New York company to starter allowance open company. And again, Linda this time of year just tends to have these horses kind of going right. And she's a barn that's winning at a 25% clip, which was pretty remarkable given how many horses that she enters up here. So I just thought this one at 6-1 presented a little bit of interesting value. And a horse that has good speed, doesn't have maybe the speed to compete with the two that we've already mentioned as the likely two, but is probably going to sit that third position. And if for some reason you start to see some of these horses tire that extra furlong, this is one that could absolutely benefit from that, cutting back from a mile last time out, now going 7.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this one is also pretty consistent. If you look at her form, I mean, she's a pretty consistent horse. She always runs her race, and I think the cut back in distance is going to suit her. And she broke her maiden at the maiden special weight level. I know state bred, but I thought that said something as well. And Jose Lezcano is riding her for the first time as well, and it's a Linda Rice horse at 6-1. So thought this was an interesting one underneath as well.
Yeah,
it's also interesting. I'll just say there's some things that I think are really fascinating. So one is so this was a Clement horse that was being run on the turf, which is not surprising because that's where most of Clement horses run. And then Linda claims the horse, immediately goes to the dirt, immediately wins. It reminds me of almost like the inverse of what happens when Mike Maker usually claims horses, which is he'll claim a dirt horse that's been losing at 6 furlongs, put the horse on grass, stretch the horse out to 1 1/8, and the horse looks like a freaking monster. So, sometimes that just like switching it up on the horse and going, hey, we're going turf to dirt, or we're going sprint to route, or we're doing both of those things. It's something sometimes it just kind of shocks the system a little bit on these horses. And sometimes you get a little bit of rejuvenation out of them. And so it's just interesting to see. Sometimes it's just a note to make, something to make note of when you see a horse like this that's claimed out of a Clement barn, which is so predominantly turf. And similarly, a barn like Linda's, if a horse is claimed out of there and then put on the turf, that can be kind of an interesting angle as well, because Linda runs so much on the dirt. So just an interesting thing that I just kind of made note of when I was looking over the horses' running lines.
Yeah, sometimes, like you said, just change of scenery, shake things up a little bit, get them going. And I would stretch out the 9 furlongs for Michael Maker even at 1.5 miles because he seems to claim these horses that are sprinting and then they turn into 1.5 mile stakes winners. And it's crazy how he is able to identify those horses.
Yes.
Real quick, I do want to touch upon the favorite because none of us have her anywhere. I know we talked about it very briefly, but is this a horse that we're just trying to completely fade, or is it a situation where there's a little bit more value elsewhere? And if maybe this horse trips up, then we want to give her a look.
Yeah, it's more so I just kind of wanted to fade her here. I mean, I didn't see the race really setting up for her whatsoever. I saw it setting up for either the 8 or the 2. So again, just viewed that as an opportunity to fade her. I thought that was a pretty short price. I mean, it should be a short price when you look at the speed figures that she's running, but I definitely use it as an opportunity to fade her.
Yeah, I don't know what version of the horse we're going to get necessarily. And I know that the first 2 from this long layoff have looked really, really good. Nothing else really before that would indicate that was what the horse is. I have a lot of respect for Horacio as a trainer. So maybe he just knows this horse needed a little bit of time off maturing, maybe needed to grow a little bit, maybe just a little bit more of a later developing horse. It wouldn't shock me as a mastery if that was the case. But there's also the question of like, is this horse going to run like it did back in July and August in terms of coming from like really well off the pace, or is this horse going to show slightly better speed than what we've seen the last couple of times out? So there were just enough questions there, and there were enough other intriguing options that I was like, something, we're going to try to beat this horse in what I think is a pretty open allowance race.
Yeah, I echo everything you guys said, and that's why I have her anywhere in my tickets as well. That was race number 7. I'm 825, Kaylie 827, Matthew 872. We are going to break the curse. We're gonna finally get that 8-horse home, and that's gonna be a decent price. 7-2 more line, maybe can go a little bit lower, but we'll see about that one. We're gonna move on to race number 8. Race 8, I have it 753. Kaylie has it 581. Matthew 512. So you guys are once again in lockstep. Let's go down number 5. That is St. Gaudens, Chad Brown, 3-1, second off the bench. What do you guys like here?
Chad Brown just hits at such a high percentage second off the layoff. Second off a 200 and 250 day layoff. He's 27 for 97, 28% win percentage. You can excuse the first start off the layoff. It was over the slop and doesn't necessarily scream that the horse can't handle it. But I mean, that's a lot, like first off of that long of a layoff. And now the horse gets blinkers off. Maybe help him wake up a little bit. Showed talent and improvement in a second to his 4th career starts and should be able to get back to that form coming in here, making his second start off the layoff. So I viewed this as the horse to beat.
Yeah, I did too. And especially, I mean, this is such an interesting horse, right? Because on one hand, you could say, man, what a money burner. This horse has been favored 4 times in 5 career starts. Only time the horse wasn't favored was the time the horse won. And so kind of hoping that trend continues as the coupled entry is probably going to take a little bit more money. And this horse will probably go off at second choice. Kaylie mentioned second back from the layoff, getting back on, what will be a drier track, I would imagine. It might not be a sloppy seal track by that point. Could be good, maybe muddy. We'll see. But I just think this one, came out of that maiden race in last February, almost a year ago. And it's important to remember that maiden race produced 4 next out winners. That was a race that I think a lot of people had circled and looked at as a highly productive race, and that produced some really nice horses, particularly a horse like Quiet Wisdom, Merlin's Moment, who finished second and third that day. And I even went back because I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't forgetting something. And I checked, Andy Serling does such a great job with track trends and, noting if a track is fair and that sort of thing. And I said, gosh, was the track fair that day? Was there an inside speed bias, or was there, was something going on? And I went back and, Andy's notes was, the track played fair on February 11th. And so I thought, okay, it wasn't some sort of speed favoring track or, inside bias or anything like that. And so I just think a lot of people have been chasing that performance. And if you're ever going to get it, it's probably going to be this time out. You're going to get maybe a little bit better track conditions, second back from that layoff. Chad's worked, of course, a few times now since then. And like I said, one of the angles that I will use regularly with handicapping is going after a money burner when it's no longer the favorite. Now, you're not getting a huge price here at 3-1. A lot of times I like to go after horses like that are 6-1, 8-1, things like that. But still, St. Gaudens, I think, is a horse that has clearly shown talent and willing to give a shot here as a top selection.
Yeah, I also have him. I have him in second. He just makes a lot of sense. Second off the bench. We saw it work last year when that was in his second start. He broke the maiden, and he really didn't run that bad. I mean, he basically replicated that figure from the maiden score. Yeah. Just didn't see any huge step forward. But I think we're going to get his best effort on Saturday. We're just going to find out if it's good enough or not. In a race, there's a lot of speed, but a lot of the speed horses in this race are also capable of coming from off of it. So I think it's a little interesting that he is drawn outside of those main rivals. I think those are all kind of drawn towards the inside. I think that's a feather in his cap in this race. So he's interesting. I didn't really entirely know what to do with him, but I am going to use him. My top pick is going to be number 7, Boss 302. I believe we talked about this race a couple weeks ago on the show, and he took a lot of money off of a long layoff, going 6 furlongs, got a good setup, and just really didn't do any running that day. And I went back and watched it. He didn't really have any major excuse. Again, he got a good setup. He just kind of ran in place. And they came across the finish line. It looked like he had a lot of horse left. It looked like it galloped out well. It kind of seemed like a prep for this because that was going 6. I was going a mile in this race. Blinkers coming on. LASIK's going on, which I found it weird last time that he wasn't using it. I think I actually brought that up on the show that he wasn't using LASIK. So all those signs kind of make it seem like this has kind of been the target all along. They wanted to get him to a mile. He should get a good setup today. He should be more forwardly placed, I would imagine, on the stretch out. And I do like that his one win came on a muddy track. That was the only time he ever came on a wet surface. It was a career best effort to this day. And I just think there's a lot of things going in his direction. So at 8-1, I'm definitely going to use him. And I think he's got a good shot in this race.
Yeah, interesting choice. I went towards another horse at a price underneath because I know I'm playing with the 5 on top. Probably going to get a pretty short price, but I'm going to use the 8 underneath the 5. I thought that this horse was pretty interesting, only making his 3rd career start. Broke his maiden in his 2nd start. This horse has a nice pedigree. And in that 2nd start, he was bumped on both of his sides at the start. Was taken back a bit, and then he, tracked the pace on the outside, came 5 wide down the stretch, and then, responded well to get the win. So I thought that this was a horse that, that maiden breaking race wasn't over the top either. It's not like he just randomly improved out of nowhere. I think this horse is, steadily improving, and only 2 career starts. I figured I'd take a shot with this one. I know he's facing winners for the first time, and that's a tall task to ask, but we don't really know what this one is capable of yet. So I figured I'd take a chance with him at a good price. And then, since projected to be a pretty fast pace here, and he's a horse that, can come from behind, and he could also track the pace as well. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, they paid a lot of money for this horse, so there's definitely expectations here.
And then they just sold the half sibling for, I think, like around the same price. I think the yearling, like the year after or something.
Yeah. A lot of pedigree there. Some good some things to like, and should definitely move forward. Third time out, man. All right. We're going to move on to number 1. That is not Cumberland Blues. That is Liberty Central. And Matthew mentioned the horse that likes to burn money. This is one of them. Beaten favorite 3 straight times, less than 2-1, 4 straight times, and settles for a lot of minor awards. So what did you guys see with Liberty Central?
Yeah, I mean, just a horse that, like you said, settles for a lot of minor awards. So if you're playing your vertical exotics, he's a horse I feel like you have to include. I mean, 11 for 14 lifetime in the trifecta. So even the horse doesn't like to win, but the horse likes to help cash exactas and trifectas quite a bit. So, it was not going to offer you much in terms of value. That's why I tried to go, I think we all went in obviously a different direction in terms of our top pick because we don't like the value that you're going to get out of Liberty Central. But the horse still runs its race kind of every time. It doesn't really turn in many clunkers. So this is a 2-time stakes placed horse. So this one has faced good competition and, obviously has been very consistent in terms of the speed figures, can handle a few different distances, has handled and run decently over wet tracks at times. So actually won over wet track. So I just think that this one, again, you're not getting a lot of value. It's not a super creative pick, but it's also foolish to go, I don't think this horse is going to finish anywhere in the top 3 because I think this horse probably will finish, 2nd or 3rd and, be a part of those exactas trifecta tickets.
Yeah. What did you see here, Kaylie?
Yeah, I completely agree. You said that this horse has a win over a wet track. Who is he by? Central Banker.
Oh, yeah.
Not intentional whatsoever. But
by the way, this episode brought to you by Central Banker, standing at McMahon Thoroughbreds for $7,500.
We should have got a sponsorship for this show, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the preference of the coupled entry. Last 2 was the horse was on the lead, going 1 1/8 and faded. So obviously the cutback is really going to suit this horse and has a bullet work coming into this as well. So I agree. I think you'd be foolish to leave this horse off your ticket.
Yeah, this would be a cool horse to own. I know he doesn't win a lot, but he shows up every time. He's made, what was that, $230,000, and he's won 1 race. That's pretty good. That just kind of shows how lucrative the New York bred program is out there. So interesting horse. We're going to take different approaches there, but he's definitely one you need to at least give a long look to. Underneath, I have number 3, Willing to Risk It All, 10-1. This is another one that's making his 3rd start off the bench, and I kind of like the versatility he's shown lately. Was close on the front end, 2 back, going a mile. Just got outgamed there, and then last time he came from way out of it in a race that mostly held together. Had a little bit of trouble. This is another one where I don't think he's going to be good enough to win, but if you are playing those verticals, he seems like one that's capable of getting a good trip, no matter how this pace shakes out, and he's not that far off on speed figure. So one I wanted to use underneath has run well on the wet track, and 10-1's a pretty generous price if you're playing those verticals.
Yeah, definitely a horse I took a long look at. Third back from that little bit of a freshening. I know is an angle that a lot of people like. Jimmy Ferrero, the trainer, is 0 for 21 to start this meet, but does have a few underneath finishes, which is good to see in terms of his horses are at least running. At least he's getting them ready to run, just not getting the win yet.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of bad luck there, and we're gonna go to He Has It All on the rail, 10-1, coming out of the same race as number 7. So what did you see here, Matthew?
Yeah, I listen. Speaking of an 0 for trainer, I mean Ray Handel 0 for 17 to start the winter at Aqueduct. So, kind of playing maybe a little bit of the same angle of a trainer that maybe gets off the schneid here, and one that I think tends to do a pretty good job at spotting his horses. This one broke its maiden off the bench after a little bit of a layoff against Open Company, actually, in November at Aqueduct after running pretty much exclusively against New York breds, and then stepped up last time out and just had a terrible start. And it was kind of over before it started. This horse has good early speed, needs to kind of get out, doesn't need the lead necessarily, but needs to be kind of tracking, stalking, trip. And when you saw the horse break almost dead last, it was like, okay, well, this is over. And that's not what this horse does. So this horse, I don't love the fact it's the rail draw, but still, this horse has enough speed to escape the rail, at least get out in good position, maybe sitting like that second, third spot in case another horse comes over and kind of crosses in front. But I just thought this one third back now from, like I said, that little bit of a freshening from August to November for a trainer who I have a lot of respect for. I think, and again, kind of has shown some improvement in terms of, has some races to run back to. That race against Vetriano way back in May, although I don't know how real that number necessarily was, as Vetriano kind of declined from there. But still, this horse is running against some nice competition in the maiden ranks, and I'm willing to give a shot here at a little bit of a price underneath at 10-1.
Yeah, I actually watched that race. I watched him in that race too, and I was surprised he ran as well as it did. As like you said, he prefers to be pretty close, and I thought he put a good late effort in the stretch out. Yep. Doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem the way he galloped out in that race. So I don't hate that pick at all. I think he's got a good look in this race. Okay, I think we covered most of the field there. That's race 8. I saw it 7-5-3. Kaylie saw it 5-8-1. Matthew 5-1-2. And we will head towards the nightcap. As usual, we have maiden race to finish it off. $20,000 claimer going 6.5 furlongs. Let me switch. Get our picks up there on the board. I think we all pretty similar in this spot. I saw it 1-4-7. Kaylie saw it 4-7-1. Matthew 4-7-1. So you guys are lockstep every race in this sequence. I like it. We're either going to be really right or really wrong collectively.
We literally didn't talk about it once.
No, we didn't. This is crazy.
You guys must talk a lot because Ryan and I are on the same page very often as well. We find ourselves on the same horses. So we all have the same trifecta. Let's hope we get it home in the nightcap. I think we talked about this recently too. And at this level, once horses start piling up the losses at this level, I kind of just want to throw them. I don't need any part of them. If they beat me, they beat me. So I wanted to give Dancing the Park a good look at 12-1 in this spot. This is a horse that took a lot of money during the summer back at Aqueduct. He was only 7-1 in that spot. Going long first time, John Velasquez bothered to ride in that race. And to be fair, he was terrible. He did absolutely no running. He just went straight to the back and didn't do anything. But that came on the grass. And I think he took all that money. Maybe it was just connection based. But he also was working pretty decently going into that, and all those works did come on the dirt. So maybe he was working well on the dirt, and he's just a dirt horse. Obviously, something went wrong that time, but he's coming back in this at a reasonable level. And again, we see some decent workouts in the tab. The one on January 19th kind of jumps off the page at you, second best of 121 out of the gate. So, there's some things to like it. The barn is really hot. Matty Oliver's riding really well, and it's not like this is the greatest field you're ever going to see. So that he doesn't have to be anything special to win this race. And at 12-1, I wanted to give him a good look. I put him on top. I just think it's a really good value play in this race. So I'm going with the one Dancing in the Park. You guys both have him in third. What did you guys see here?
Yeah, I completely agree. That work from the gate stuck out like a sore thumb. So that was the main reason for putting this horse third. Definitely putting this horse on my pick 5 ticket. I think this is not, you have obviously your main players here, but I think this race is pretty wide open. So I wouldn't, put it past this horse to improve switching to dirt, complete different, like sprinting on the dirt compared to routing on the turf in his first start. So I think that this horse, is a little bit of a wild card here. And clearly, with that bullet work coming into this, they probably have intentions of, you would assume out of the 1-hole-2 sending this horse here. So I think, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how this one runs and could win at a big price. Like, Morley does a lot. So.
Yeah, agreed. I think, seeing Tom have a nice work with this horse. And then what I always love is when you see trainers do this, and, you'll see this sometimes from Rudy, you'll see this from other trainers. You Sometimes the horse works maybe a little faster than you even wanted the horse to work. And then it's like, okay, let's put in a couple maintenance works. Like, let's just take it easy. Let's not do anything crazy. And so I really like to see a fast work followed by maybe 1 or 2 slow works. Or just like, okay, we know what we have. And that's kind of what the impression that I get of like, okay, we saw what we needed to see. Now we just need to keep this horse kind of fit and in good condition and just on a regular cycle there. So I really like that work routine. Also, for those of you who are a little bit younger, the sire of the dam, Rock Hard 10. Do yourself a favor, go back and watch the 2004 Preakness and watch the horses load into the starting gate. Rock Hard 10 appears to be a different species of animal. It was easily one of the biggest freaking horses I've ever seen in my life. He was just a monster of a horse. And so I always love it when I see Rock Hard 10, who did not turn out to be a particularly good sire, but I just love to see whenever his name pops up on past performances, just kind of makes me smile, remembers that race. But Jackson, this race, if you're going to try to beat the even money favorite, who we're going to get to talking about here in a minute or two, go for a price. So I completely see your logic here, and the gate work gives you confidence the horse is going to escape from the rail.
Yeah, to me, he feels like a horse that's either going to win this race for fun or he's going to be dead last. He either can run or he can't, and there's going to be no in between. So we're going to find out on Saturday. I do plan on going back to watch that Preakness. I always like that 04 Classic where Rock Hard 10 was a part of at Sam Houston. That was loaded field, and it's one I like to watch. So I'll make sure to check that one out. We all have number 4, we all have number 4 in there. You guys both have him as your top pick. Diabolic. I don't know how you're going to say that. Let's let Kaylie try to pronounce that one. Number 4 for Jenna Antonucci, 6-1.
Diabolico, maybe. I think this
Diabolico.
this horse is probably 6-1 because I think honestly this horse would be a shorter price if it's coming from a low win percentage barn, and this horse is dropping in class, showed the ability to pass runners first time out, and was a late runner in a race with a lot of speed here, so that can make him dangerous and dropping in class, and also show gate speed in his last start too. And then the runner up in the race 2 back improved next time out, won with an 88 buyer speed figure, and then the 6th place finisher as well broke his maiden next time out with an 86. So I thought this one was a little bit interesting, and like you said, trying to play against the favorite. So I thought this one was one that was at a pretty good price, 6-1.
Yeah, agreed with Kaylie's analysis here. You get the class drop from maiden 40 down to maiden 20. And you're right, 6-1 feels like a very honest price on this horse. We're going to talk about the favorite here in a second, but I'd be shocked if you get 6-1. I have a lot of respect for David Aragona and the job that he does at making the morning line. This one feels maybe a little high. I think maybe closer to 9-2, 4-1 is maybe where this horse ends up. But still, I think to Kaylie's point, I think the fact it's a Jenna Antonucci horse, people aren't necessarily going to flock to bet this as opposed to a Linda Rice runner. What I really like is what Kaylie pointed out. This horse showed good gate speed last time out, and more importantly, keeps the same jockey aboard. So Jock knows how to get the speed out of this one, and now you're cutting back a little bit. So I like that we showed speed last time out, faded. Now we're going from a mile to 6.5. Good. We can show speed again. Let's go with the same strategy. This horse just continuing to build up foundation, and I think there's a lot to like there. Also, I think it'd be remiss if we didn't shout out the fact that Jenna Antonucci is one of the horse people down in Florida who's trying to do a lot of good work and trying to do a lot of things to try to save the sport down there and save some of the things going on at Gulfstream Park. So, she's kind of trying to use her visibility in the sport to help influence the legislation down in Florida. And I think we'd be remiss if I didn't mention that at least for a second. So obviously rooting for her in a lot of different ways, but I think this one presents a really nice alternative to the even money favorite in this one, just based on the class drop and some of the company that Kaylie pointed out that this one has kept.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said about Antonucci. And it was good to see her get on the board late the other week after pretty prolonged slump she was in. So hopefully that gets the barn rolling a little bit. This is one that, has a lot of upside compared to everything else in this field, where there are a lot of the over 10s, over 12s, over 14s are kind of piling up. And if you're looking at time form, this horse is kind of the clear cut speed of the race based on that last performance. And again, she was breaking from he was breaking from the rail that day. Now she's moving towards the middle of the field. Big drop in class. And this is the first time there's kind of expectations here, because in all those races he was 22-1, 56-1, 17-1. Not much was expected of him. So this is a race where he's finally supposed to, be competitive. So I think that's a big thing he has going for him. I agree though. 6-1's probably a little high, but definitely a big contender. Probably the obvious alternative to the favorite. That's number 7, Washed Up for Linda Rice. Even money, has had some chances. Another one that seems to burn some money, but they find himself in a spot where he should be pretty competitive today.
Yeah, and I think it's also the Linda angle, right? I mean, first off, the claim for Linda. So that's I think that's another reason the horse has a lot of respect with with Jose up on the mount, Lizcano, that is. And Linda over the last 5 years, just to kind of put a pin in this, 32% off the claim in dirt sprints over the last 5 years when running at the maiden claiming level. So this is kind of her move. She'll claim horses from, in this case, a very well-established barn like Chad Brown, and have this horse kind of run back. And obviously this horse had, Kaylie was talking about earlier with another horse, but this horse had some expectations too, $425,000 sale. So there was clearly some expectations here that have not yet been met. But the thing that concerns me is this horse faded last time at 7. We're only cutting back to 6.5. I don't know exactly how the story is going to be different this time out. So like you said, Jackson, you start racking up some losses. It's hard for me to really trust you, even when you're this much of a favorite in this particular race.
What'd you see, Kaylie?
Yeah, I completely agree. That's why I didn't really feel super confident taking this one at even money. I didn't think that half a furlong cut back in distance is going to do much for this horse, but I could be surprised, but definitely not at this price. I'll just let him beat me. So took that as an opportunity to use the 4 on top instead. But yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, he's a tough sell for me. I mean, if you look at his last race, that number is pretty much what everyone else in this field has been running lately. And this horse is even money, and everyone else you're getting way better price. But then the race 2 and 3 back, those are kind of standout races. But maybe he's just a horse that kind of runs to his competition, because he's only hit the board 2 times out of 8 starts, and he's always takes money. So there's a lot of mixed signals here. I think he's one that you need to respect, but I don't know if you necessarily want to lean on. Not sure how much. Linda's obviously very, very good at this, but I don't know how much he's supposed to move up a horse off of Chad Brown either. So we'll see. I mean, it's a little. This horse is confusing to me, so I'm going to use him, but I left him in 3rd just because I didn't really know entirely what to do. All right, I think I have this race 147, Kaylie 471, and Matthew has it 471. So that's going to conclude our 5 race picks. We're going to go into our pick 5 tickets right now. There we go. Matthew, why don't you kick us off? We have a $24 ticket in this sequence.
Yeah, so very first leg, I went 2, 3, 4, 6. So included Allure of the Money, some Centavo, Debate, who we all discussed, as well as the number 6, Strong Light. This horse is a little bit interesting to me. It does like to come from off the pace. I think probably is better at 1.5 miles, but willing to give this one a little bit of a shot at 9-2. So that was where I went in the first leg. Second leg, I went with the 8, who we talked about singling there, the Linda Rice horse, Accidental Bid. Then in the race number 7, went 3 deep in that one, went 2, 7, and 8. Those were just my top 3 selections who we went over, the Big Calhouna, and then further to the outside, Splashy and Patty Van Twinkle. In race number 8, the state bred allowance race, I just went 2 deep there with the 2 and the 5, trying to get the St. Gaudens as well as the Ray Handle horse. He has it all, trying to get beat the even money, might be even money, but the coupled entry in that race. And then the last one, I could have gone with a $12 ticket, but I decided to be a little bit defensive and include Wajda there, but then also include my top selection, the number 4, Diabolico, in this one as well. So, a $24 ticket, this is the sort of ticket that I would view as a base. The day of, scratches happen, things like that. Maybe you end up adding one horse on. Maybe you take a horse off. Maybe you throw 2 on in a different leg. But it gives you at least some flexibility to go, okay, here's a $24 base ticket. And if I want to add 1 or 2 here, I can do that and still not really break my budget.
Right. You can always press it up, too, if you decide you want to do that or change your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I like it. Kaylie, why don't you go ahead and go through yours?
Yeah, in the first leg, I just used the 2 and the 4, which I had in my top 2. Debate and Allure Money. And then in the second leg, I singled the 8 that we all singled. And then the next leg, I went 4 deep with the Big Kahuna. And then I did, and then, sorry, I have a different pick 5 on my computer than I do on my phone. And then I used the number 7 Splashy, and I used the number 8 on the outside as well. And then in the next leg, I just used my 3 top choices there. I included that Baron of Sealand, even though that might not necessarily be necessary. I don't know. I think this horse maybe could surprise and end up being pretty nice. So that's why I included that one there. And then in the next leg, And then in the next leg, I used 5 horses because I viewed it as a little bit wide open there. I used the 1, the 2, the 4, the 7, and the 9 there. So definitely going to spread a little bit in the last one and definitely adjust this ticket a ton race day after scratches and see how the
in the last race, trying to catch a price, make this thing pay a little bit. I like it a lot. My ticket really quick is, I don't think I have it on there, but it is $36. It's very similar to last week, where I think it's horizontally, I'm going to play it pretty light. I'll probably play this ticket and that'll be it. But I think vertically, you can get some horses in there that kind of just run that same race. There's a few horses that get 3rd or 2nd or 4th every time and just try to key them in there. So that'll probably be more of my strategy for Saturday. But as far as the pick 5 goes, I went just 2 deep to open it. Centavo and Re-Rally. I just feel like those 2 are going to be decent prices in a wide open race. So going to hope for the best and get lucky. Hopefully we're live to accidental bid. Just looks very, very tough in that 6th race. It's kind of it is a universal single for us, so probably going to be a really short price. Could go lower than even money even. 7th race is the one I'm going to spread the most. Big Kahuna, Despo Stream is one I also use. I don't think we talked about that one, but that's second off a claim for Linda. Didn't really run great last time, but I wanted to give him another chance because now she's going to be 8-1 instead of, I think she was 4-5 last time. So I wanted to give her a look. Roman Goddess and Patty Van Winkle will be my 3, or will be my 4 in there. And then Willing to Risk It All in race 8, number 3, St. Gaudens and Boss 302 at 8-1. That's my top pick. Hoping he gets back to that good form he showed on debut and over the wet track. So really hoping to get him home at a price. And then in my last race, I have Dancing in the Park at 12-1 for Thomas Morley. That's my top pick. Hopefully get him home because that'll really shake this pick 5 up if we can get there. I am going to use Diabolico at 6-1, and I don't feel good about it either, but I am going to use Washda for Linda at even money. So that's $36 ticket. And let's see, that's kind of going to do it. Quick closing thoughts, because I saw an ad for it. Do you guys have any, I didn't prep you for this, but do you have any early thoughts on the Kentucky Derby pool number 4? Who are you guys looking at all, if any?
I'm going to look at that on my phone.
I haven't seen the odds yet.
Yeah, I don't think the pool's opened yet, but I thought I'll real quick. I'm just looking at Tappan Street. I've been talking about him for a little bit. I think he's 40-1. I really liked Burnham Square the other day. He looked really good, I thought, in that race, but I think he's only like 18-1 or something like that. And this far out, still, I just can't settle on too short of a price. I know it's not a crazy low price, but I mean, what are the odds on these horses still to just even make the starting gate at this point? I mean, it's tough. A lot of things have to go right to continue to keep running well, and you got to stay healthy is the big thing. So, you guys have any early thoughts on the Derby, or are you just kind of just waiting and seeing for these last few rounds of preps?
Yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, Kaylie, you and I do our show every week on the Road to the Derby and Prep on NyerBets YouTube, and so I'd be interested in kind of your thoughts on this. But I feel like one of the things that we've lacked to this point, and that might very well change on Saturday with East Avenue returning, is I feel like we have not seen really a wow performance yet from any of the outside of Barnes, I would argue, and that was going one turn. And so we've not seen that wow performance. We've seen some big speed figures. A horse like Colloquial ran a huge speed figure, biggest of the crop, just last week up at Aqueduct. Now, whether that horse wants to go 2 turns and wants to, stretch out, those are the horse just broke its maiden. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered. River Thames is a horse, I'd be interested to see kind of what price that horse is going to be in these future pools, likely to go to the Fountain of Youth next. And so, but hasn't really faced this level of competition. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting because I've not been overwhelmed by any horse. So as a result, it's hard for me to take a short price really on any of them. And to your point about, who's even going to be in the starting gate? It's honestly one of the reasons why I'm continually upgrading a horse like Citizen Bull, because I'm like, that horse is going to be in the starting gate as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah.
Because he's got all the points, and so and somehow he ends up being like the most overlooked Baffert horse because everybody wants to go to Barnes, or they try to be, just as I am, smart and go to a horse like Romanesque or Rodriguez, and some of these other ones. And Citizen Bull's just there, like, hey man, all I do is win grade ones. Like, what else do I have to do here to get some respect? So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm always interested to see how the money, how things change once the betting starts taking action. But I'll shut up and let Kaylie kind of share some of her thoughts.
Oh, I just wait until like literally the last second to look at the odds. Like I just, decide in the last 5 minutes. Obviously, I have my favorites. Hoping maybe Sovereignty, since we haven't seen him in a bit, maybe I'll get a fair price on him. So I like to see what he's going to close around, and if so, I'd probably put it on him. But I'd love to take one at a short price, but. Like you said,
what race is he targeting? I know he's coming up pretty soon, right?
I would imagine the Fountain of Youth because he's training for Bill down at.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And then, real quick, Kaylie, are you still giving Ferocious one more chance? Or are you kind of signing the divorce papers with him as far as the Derby goes?
I mean, he's a nice horse. He's always gonna be a nice horse. I don't think I'll, pick him to win. I think I'm probably a little scarred from that, but watch when I don't, he'll probably win. But I mean, who knows if he can work out a few quirks, maybe he ends up improving. He hasn't really done anything horrible, so he's a nice horse, but yeah, no, definitely not playing him back to win after that.
I think that one of the things that I know Kaylie and I have talked about is just the difference between Ferocious and East Avenue this week. Those two horses ran obviously a little bit of time apart, with Ferocious running in the Holy Bull, East Avenue running this weekend in the Risen Star. But Ferocious had 3 works leading up to that 2025 debut, and the horse is probably not fully cranked at that point. So I think there's reason to think that that the best is yet to come for Ferocious, and that he's going to run a better race next time out, third time out, sort of thing. But at some point you start running out of opportunities to get those points to get into the starting gate. And the competition starts getting tougher and tougher too. And so sometimes it's nice to rack up some points in some of those earlier preps. You look at East Avenue, Brendan's got that horse ready to roll on Saturday. 6 workouts, a bullet 5 furlong, 4 straight 5 furlong works. I mean, this horse is ready to go on Saturday. So that's one. And also, when you're debuting a horse in a 50-point prep race, you're not giving yourself a lot of wiggle room to like screw around here. So this is one of those where it's like, we got one race, then 100-point prep, and then we're going to the Derby, and that's it. And so, I think sometimes you just have to kind of always take that stuff into consideration. And so while Ferocious was disappointing, I think, like Kaylie said, I mean, next time might be the time, 2 times out might be the time. But the good news is you'll probably get a better price on him now, next time or the time after. So, from a betting standpoint, that's actually when you want to double down on a horse like that, just as, Sierra Leone burned a lot of our money over the summer. And then, comes Breeders' Cup time, that's when he cashed. And so you never want to give up on those horses.
Yeah, even if my big thing with Ferocious, I agree. I don't think he was ready at all. I think it was a total prep. I'm a little concerned about the distance as we keep stretching out. So even if we don't see him in the starting gate on the Kentucky Derby, won't be surprised if we see him be really competitive in a race like the Pat Day Mile on the undercard. So that's something to look for him. And I'm excited for East Avenue. I think it's put up or shut up time for him. The juvenile was pretty disappointing. I know he didn't break great, but it's been questionable for him coming out of there. So I'm really excited.
I think
how he does on Saturday.
Yeah. I think that's a really great horse. Dare I say too early, but I think he might end up being a really great horse. So really excited.
Well, we're going to find out. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you to Matthew. Thank you to Kaylie. Any final thoughts, or should we wrap this thing up?
Good luck everywhere. Everyone's playing on Saturday. Lots going on. Super excited.
Luck. Yeah, good luck, and good luck for everybody watching Fairgrounds as it turns from day to night, and good luck watching the stretch run under the lights there. Always a little bit chaotic, but yeah, I'm off to record a 14 race capping the card. So I'm just going to curse everybody at Fairgrounds and the racing office who just insists on carding 14 and 15 race cards. But hey, it's going to be a lot of fun and good racing from sun up to sundown.
I love it. Again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to Matthew and to Kaylie for joining us tonight as well. And we'll see you guys next time. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go Birds.
Go Birds.